Like a metal ocean, the enormous assembly hall extended before them. The curving walls were packed with thousands of seats, which rose until they vanished into the darkness. A unique alien species was stashed in every seat, some of them possessed light-reflecting scales. As they bobbed in transparent containers, others held a peculiar gas. Too many of them resembled humans, yet a small number of them with crooked fingers or crooked eyes. The human portion was where Elena Vasquez sat. When put in comparison to the others, seemed insignificant. A classy black suit was her attire. Even though her heart was racing, she managed to keep her expression composed. Enveloped by several human diplomats moved in their seats. They were all aware that the conference would be a disaster, small mark. Right in the middle of hall, a massive crystal entity ascended a platform that emitted a gentle blue radiance. Light, Speaker Vel, who was older than the sun and tougher than diamond, was speaking. Whenever it talked, every language spoken in the hall was echoed back by it. We compile. Today, due to an issue. Some animals just won't budge from their principles that maintain harmony in our galaxy. When certain species respond positively, others respond negatively. This species violates the rules meant to safeguard us all, and Elena was aware that they were referring to folks. Lately, people have been bringing up humans all the time. A lean, tall extraterrestrial with ex-ambassador Z. Kaller of the hegemony with silvery skin sprang to his feet, an influential faction within the council. His people's history of interstellar travel spanned millennia. Considered themselves experts on the subject of ideal social systems. Veltheros, the speaker, says what's on his mind. Zephylar's voice was as smooth as oil yet as frigid as. Our rules have been violated 3 times in the past year by beings in space who have constructed other species' colonies and territories, and they're not letting our spacecraft dock with them, conduct inspections of its naval warships. Worse more, they refuse to participate in peace negotiations. Instead of obtaining answers, the hall was filled with murmurs, and Elena overheard the word. She heard primitive foreign languages that sounded both terrifying and uncontrolled. Silence was rung out like a bell by the 2 dots on the speaker's crystal body. Display the evidence. Above them, a huge screen materialized, depicting ships manned by humans. As it traveled through space, it revealed additional human settlements on worlds that the Council had sanctioned. Said that humans ought not to have. The screen saw human battleships averting their gaze. Human diplomats were seen departing the meeting after the Council inspection teams were presented. Rooms as negotiations continued. Such behavior does not characterize a civilized society. Animal species, Sether went on to say, we have attempted to exercise patience. We have presented the people a lot of opportunities to learn from our mistakes, but they turn them all down. It's as if our regulations don't apply to them. They behave superior to everyone else. The council species were superior than the rest of them, and Elena was on the verge of laughing, in a state of technological near incomprehension. They possessed space-based metropolises capable of teleporting between stars, and days instead of months. They possessed weapons capable of shattering planets and shielding capable of preventing suns. Paled in comparison to the majority of the species housed in this hall. But Elena saw then the crux of the matter. The council saw people as though they were immature and in need of guidance on proper conduct. Imposed regulations on humans without consulting them, dictating where they may settle and how they could. They planned to fight back and assume that people would be appreciative of the opportunity to follow suit. Commands, a second extraterrestrial, resembling a gigantic bug, rose to its feet. Rainbow-colored wings. Maybe people just don't get it, it said in a voice that sounded busy bees. Maybe they just need a little more experience to become well-behaved. Seth Kohler said, half a century since first contact. Other than half that period, species figured out how to obey council law. People are either too arrogant or too ignorant to obey. Elena's jaw clenched as she sensed the other person's presence. Also became irate, but they all chose to remain silent. After all, this was her responsibility, not theirs. The order lifted a single crystal arm in gesture of decision-making by the council. We provide people with only one more option. either comply with all integration protocols or total disconnection from intergalactic civilization. The auditorium became quiet. Because to integration standards, humans were obligated to obey all council laws. Colonies would be overseen by council monitors. Ships carrying humans would be required to get council permissions in order to travel. It meant that governments would have to seek council permission for important actions, which essentially meant that human independence would be abolished. Nobody could trade with any species on the council, and they couldn't even reach the galactic network was cut off from the council's space pathways. Therefore, as before first contact, mankind would be isolated from the cosmos. Elena surveyed the AI, surveyed the gamut of extraterrestrial features. Some had a smug expression as if they were certain people would eventually give up. Some were anxious as if they were concerned about being alone may be overly severe. Some appeared inquisitive as if they were intrigued about what people. Ambassador Vasquez. The speaker addressed the diplomat. You represent the all people. Do you have a response? The auditorium was dead still as Elena slowly rose to her feet. She was aware of her own breathing and reflected on the events leading up to this point, which had culminated in 50 years of humankind's attempts to, as aliens who should have known better, how to blend in with a cosmic civilization that welcomed them. 50 years of concessions that appeared to perpetually benefit the more senior, superior beings. After 50 years of hearing that humans were inherently flawed, she pondered the human colonies flourishing on worlds controlled by the Council and whether their ways were incorrect, dismissed as useless. She pondered the possibility of human scientists finding new information that Council experts had previously dismissed. She pondered the inconceivable, human engineers, constructing ships with innovative superior designs than anything the Council had ever encountered. Perhaps being cut off from the galaxy wouldn't be the worst thing that could happen, an act of retribution that the Council believed it to be. Elena fixed her gaze squarely on the crystal. No, resounded like a shotgun in the empty hall when the speaker gave the human response. Gunshot. Some of the extraterrestrials got out of their chairs, while others gasped and broke into dozens of languages. No, the speaker's voice conveyed incredulity. Others made noises of shock or rage. You reject both possibilities. Refuse to be limited to only two poor options, as Elena stated emphatically. We will not surrender our liberty or suffer the consequences of exile for simply existing. Defy this council's authority to dictate human existence. She set out on foot with her other diplomats trailing after, heading for the exit. If you leave this hallway, Stoller pursued her, the opportunity to negotiate has passed. Elena froze at the threshold and waited for the council to take action without any human involvement. World around. Countless extraterrestrials, their expressions a mix of bewilderment and wrath, stared at her. These entities had formerly controlled the space for millions of years. During that time, they had never encountered a species that flat out declined. Then take action, she admonished them, before walking away. Humanity will follow suit, leaving the hall. With a low hiss, the door shut behind the human delegation. The extraterrestrials within sat in astonished quiet. Throughout the vast expanse of time, the Council of Stars, no race has ever politely declined and then disappeared. They would always find a way, even when faced with uncertainty, and proceed accordingly. Humans, as the Council would soon discover, have their own methods of dealing with challenging species, challenging circumstances as well. 3 days subsequent to the humans' departure, the Council 847 different species cast their votes by raising their various appendages. Indeed, the choice was very apparent. Mankind would be plunged into total solitude. Z. Kaler, an ambassador from galactic civilization, observed the voting with a smile on his face. His findings were reported by the counters. The hall's lights reflected his silver skin. He promised the humans that they will learn. He enlisted the help of a little, anxious-looking replica of himself as their economic situation deteriorated. When the plane went down and its citizens started to panic, the Council wasted no time in carried out their strategy. In a few hours, all human commerce ships in Council space got the same message. Get out of here ASAP and never come back. Traders who had transacted with extraterrestrial civilizations for eons, suddenly discovered their contracts were null and void and their items were turned down. Intergalactic space pathways were governed by long-gone extraterrestrials. Technology. The committee just blacklisted all human ships. Any ship attempting to utilize the expedited shipping channels would be either rejected or sunk. If they persisted in remaining, communication networks that extended beyond light years started to block all transmissions. Departing from Earth's orbit, communications between human settlements and extraterrestrial realms abruptly ceased to function, as if someone had slashed all the simultaneously, with Captain Sarah Chun at the helm of a human freighter. Known as the New Horizon at the start of the isolation after 5 years of commerce with the Zephyrian colonies, transporting precious metals and stones that were extracted by humans more efficiently than any other species. Were plant-like creatures that had always dealt fairly, and Sarah found them at the Zephyrian trade post station. Her ship's speakers distorted the speech of the docking controls to sound melancholy. "We will not let you to dock, Captain Chun. I apologize for the inconvenience. There has been a council meeting. Forbade any interaction with human reproductive organs." Does our contract still stand? What about Sarah? Titanium crystals, which the Zephyrians had requested, were in her cargo hold, required for their technological advancements. Our long-term business relationship continues with the deal. Is empty. If you do not vacate our premises immediately, we shall have no choice except to contact. Regarding the execution of council regulations, ships, Sarah gazed at her screen for communication in unbelief. Among the Zephyrians, she had acquaintances with whom she had shared meals and tailies. As a result of the votes of a few council leaders, they began to treat her as an enemy, unfolded in space and time. Extraterrestrials escorted human diplomats from their embassies. Intergalactic students' colleges were instructed to return home immediately. Visitors from other cultures discovered they found themselves completely cut off from the outside world when extraterrestrial transportation services declined to take them. Instantaneous. Humanity transitioned from a cosmic civilizational component to an independent one, abruptly severed all ties with it. On the return to Earth, President Martinez convened an emergency summit of the Global Council. In Geneva's Grand Assembly Hall, heads of state from every human civilization converged. Worried murmurs in dozens of human languages filled the room. Reports are pouring in from all across our stated the commander of the human space force, Admiral Torres, every commercial route and every colony is entirely cut off. All channels of contact have gone dark. How much longer can we go on in this state? Director Kim of Mars Industrial Complex. We trade minerals with extraterrestrial beings. For half of our technological needs, species, a weary yet resolute President Martinez stood at the platform. It took us thousands of years to live before we encountered extraterrestrials. Now that we have, our colonies will require resources, Centauri System Governor Walsh protested. Without extraterrestrial, individuals will succumb to medical technology. Next, we'll need to come up with our own healthcare. Martinez responded, technology. We'll need to manufacture everything in-house. Simply Dr. Elizabeth Stone, the foremost scientist on Earth, brought her up much like our forebears. And it's possible that this isn't as terrible as everyone believes, Mr. President. It's possible that we then neglected to advance our own technology in our pursuit of assimilating into galactic civilization. Isolation will reawaken our creative faculties. Several in the room gave her the evil eye as if she were insane. In the meanwhile, the extraterrestrials in council space were nodding thoughtfully, eagerly anticipated the end of the human race. Zeeth Kaller had his agents compile reports on economic activities of humans. He anticipated a decline in commerce. He was perplexed by the initial reports of a decline in productivity and frantic pleas for the end of the isolation. While human commerce with extraterrestrial worlds had ceased, trade between human colonies was on the rise, with ships repeatedly hopping between our planet, Mars, Centauri's outposts, and a plethora of adjacent human habitations. Seth Kohler disclosed to his aide, when those run out, he'll have nothing left. Months went by. Later, predicted collapse did not occur. Instead, human colonies were detected by long-range sensors to be throughout every human globe. New buildings were going up and industrial production was. Saller's self-assurance started to grow as the years passed. Truly rising, fracture, it defied all logic that an isolated species could be flourishing. He sent a reconnaissance ship since the Council was aware of galactic technology and commerce, was given the command to investigate human space operations by means of the scout ship, was a swift little ship built to sneak into enemy territory undetected. Noticeably entered human space close to the system's sentry boundary, and it started taking readings right away. The results were completely illogical. Newly established orbital stations. A 30% increase in colony size since isolation began were being built. With the expansion of mining activities, previously neglected asteroids were now being targeted. The majority, most astonishingly, it appeared as though people were creating new technological advancements. The scout, a wary extraterrestrial named Vector, kept an eye on human ships as they sailed swiftly across space on ships with designs he had never seen before. These ships were more streamlined and more rapidly than the previous human creations. Their gait indicated the possibility of novel powertrains. How on earth is this even feasible? Victor said in a low voice to his workers. Council technology databases are inaccessible to them. A trade cannot be conducted with them for high-tech substances. From whence are these innovations being sourced? One of his science officers, a sentient entity with a wide field of view, examined the reads attentively. I believe they're creating everything on their own. These aren't replicas of Council technology. These are brand new designs. Victor experienced a shiver go down his spine via his scaled form. The Council has long held the belief that advancement necessitated the collective wisdom of many creatures. It was thought to be impossible for a single species to make rapid progress on its own, but here we are. The scout ship persisted in its observation for a few more weeks, demonstrating that assumption was incorrect. With each passing day, fresh discoveries. Advances in energy generation, materials research, and space exploration were being made by human scientists. Engineers on Earth were constructing things that Council experts had previously deemed impossible to do when Vector came back to Council space with his findings, which Thaler had to read 3 times before he could believe. Eventually he spoke up, "They're advancing." His age group moved anxiously. Is it necessary to tighten the separation any further? Zeth Kaller gazed out looking out the window of the office in the great space station, where the Council had convened for millions of years, stellar society. All crucial decisions were taken here. All species with the exception of those who appeared to be engaged in. Quite good without them. Go ahead, the seclusion, he said. Perhaps they will still fall. Perhaps this is only a short setback. However, he secretly fears that it was starting to look like the Council had made a huge error of judgment when they attempted to punish mankind by disconnecting aim off from galactic civilizations. Alternatively, they may have decided to free mankind. In the 5 years following the start of the Great Isolation, an event occurred that unanticipated. People vanished. It began with the outlying colonies. The Council's long-range sensors, which monitor Earth's atmosphere, started to display anomalous data, and the mining stations started to act up. All activity ceased near Proximus Centauri, and the agricultural colony on Kepler 442b remained inactive. Eventually, human communities ceased transmitting their daily status updates. Just went dark first. The witnesses from the Council speculated that it may be equipment. Space was hazardous, and colonies occasionally had power outages or means of communication. However, when patrol vessels were dispatched to probe, they discovered an illogical phenomenon. The colonies appeared to be deserted. The Council patrol ship Vigilance Captain Tessara, it was Harmony, a seasoned veteran, who touched down first on a planet that humans had left behind. Officer hailing from the Republic of Altarian, a race renowned for its meticulousness and rational reasoning. Pondering you. Throughout her 4 decades of duty, she had encountered several peculiarities, but none comparable to this. The human settlement on the original plan for New Geneva called for housing 50,000 people. The platforms in orbit around the planet could have accommodated an additional 20,000 upon the arrival of Tessara's ship, her. Lead us to the main settlement, she ordered, when sensors revealed no indications of life. Commanded her crew, I want to see this with my own eyes. The spacecraft touched down in the where New Geneva City's center square had once stood. Tisara emerged, clad and donning her environmental suit. She checked the air quality and found that it was still breathable. Her crew trailed after. The city was picture-perfect, with buildings standing sentry and guns at the ready. The streets were tidy and well-maintained. Everything was in its proper place. The gardens were still brimming with earth flowers, and the vehicles were neatly placed in rows that the settlers had transported. Otherwise, all appeared to be in order, with the exception of one critical aspect: the absence of. Sir contacted the head of her security detail. A gigantic insectoid entity called his finger landed on H. He guided her to the site of the colony's spaceport. There was no one on the landing pads, but there were obvious indications of recent usage. Accumulate shippoint points. Engines were in good condition. Cargo containers were organized. Containers that appeared to have been in the process of being loaded when they came to a halt. Tisara took stock of the contents. They contained items that are dear to people's hearts, such as clothing, photographs, and mementos. Remembering their homeland, it appeared as though the colonists had been making arrangements to go, albeit in a more methodical fashion than they were evading harm. "I'm reading," her scientific officer reported to the captain. "Electrical signatures in the homes. There's power in the buildings. Methods for extending the lifespan of food continue to operate, but no one is home." Hour after hour, they looked every complex, including each and every room and storage space. The beds that they discovered resembled not long ago they had been sleeping in. Tables had half-eaten dinners on them. Toys for kids were all over the floor, but no one was there, or not at all. The fact that they discovered no evidence of a struggle, no gunfire, and no signs of fighting or panic, doors smashed. It seemed like 50,000 people had made the sudden decision to depart, bringing with them just their most valued belongings. Also, there were reports throughout all human realms that the Council examined. While Titan's massive shipyards were deserted, they remained unharmed. According to the study stations inside the Vega system were meticulously decommissioned after being abandoned. The Jupiter's enormous orbiting cities displayed indications of a coordinated evacuation plan instead of tragedy. In the Council's main office, urgent sessions were known as. The large meeting hall was often bustling with anxious and perplexed people, voices. Hundreds of species worth of representatives strove to interpret the phenomenon. A whole spacecraft Valthuros, the speaker, claimed that civilization is not going away. In the past. A frustrated tone resounded in the crystal being's voice. It is impossible for populations in the billions to disappear completely. On his podium, Ambassador Scalar moved erratically. He had a silver complexion faded from its former luster. They must have been through something, illness or calamity of some kind. Possibly they were assaulted by an adversary we are unaware of, but also had issues with the theory. When diseases leave bodies, they go. Events caused by Mother Nature would result in devastation. When the enemy attacked, they would leave a trail of destruction, though these things were not displayed by the human world. The elderly and intelligent Cathedioses, whose species had endured a tentacle to get attention during an intergalactic catastrophe. "Maybe we should think about another option," she remarked thoughtfully. "Maybe that individual's willingly departed." Squawking voices erupted in the hall. "The one that Thaler has pierced the background noise? Nearly impossible. Who would accompany them?" "So what's the plan? Totalities of people without anybody noticing? Just considering the energy needs beyond what their technology can handle." Kaveda kept his cool. "Our previous assumptions they were mistaken on human capacities. The two of us seen seclusion as a means to their demise. They did rather well. Perhaps we are incorrect on their transportation capabilities as well." As the head of the consulted his database as a scientific advisor to the Council. His mechanical body beeped using processing power. He examined each report from human space. It appears that the evacuation was planned and executed in a coordinated fashion over a span of around 6 months. Nearly 3 weeks ago, the most recent colonies went black. There was no abrupt phenomenon, but whose responsibility is its coordination? questioned Valtheros, the speaker. And just how failed we to discover large-scale moves of ships? It would take thousands of massive ships to transport billions of people. Possibly the Confederation's ambassador Euthron proposed that we construct new undetectable spacecraft. They were working on innovative technology while under quarantine. Alternatively, Khalifa had discovered a means of transportation that eludes our comprehension, they whispered. Its members devoted a considerable amount of time to undertaking the investigation. They dispatched their most elite cruisers to scour human space. Their discovery was pinpointed to the initial patrols had communicated. Colonies that are empty yet unharmed. Indicates a strong controlled evacuation with no knowledge of the whereabouts of the people who have departed. The riddle grew when more peculiarities about the deserted human settlements were discovered by the investigators. In legislative halls and public plazas within the structures, they uncovered little gadgets that had been purposefully abandoned. They were only basic message recorders set to go off whenever extraterrestrials got too near. The initial communication was discovered on Earth in the rubble of the UN headquarters. Triggered by Ambassador Scaller's crew, it emerged as a hologram. The human diplomat Elena Vasquez, who exited the council rooms 5 years prior. As a result of her, there were gray strands in her hair, yet her eyes exuded confidence and serenity. Given that then you have discovered that humanity has left, her apparition stated as she watched this in this cosmos. It was a deliberate decision, not one driven by rage or terror. Created with optimism and resolve, the hologram went on to say, throughout the past 5 years, you attempted to punish us by severing our ties to your civilization, as if the fear of being cut off would render us feeble and helpless. Frantic, you missed the mark. Being alone provided us with something far more significant, more so than your commerce lines or technological databases. It allowed us the liberty to explore our potential. Z. Kaller. His research team spoke in their different languages as he looked in astonishment at the footage. Be perplexed as to how we managed to get this out, Elena's likeness persisted. The development of mobility outside your ken, which impacted billions of people without your awareness figuring it out. The solution is easy. As you toiled away for thousands of years crafting the technology that you were already in possession of, we dedicated 5 years to conceptualizing technology that you seem inconceivable. The hologram grinned. And for an instant, Elena appeared to be dressed as the same dogged diplomat who had defied the whole council. We discovered a way. We discovered new dwellings among the stars you never imagined, allowing us to travel across galaxies. We discovered cultures that were more interested in collaborating with us than in mandating that we participate as subjects. The message concluded with phrases that would be with the council for a long time. You wanted us out, and we made sure we went. Just keep in mind thing. Instead of pushing us away, you liberated us. The hologram eventually disappeared. Stoller and his colleagues stand in a deserted structure on a barren planet, gazing into the void where humanity's this was the last message. Messages like this were discovered all around the cosmos on every planet that humans had left behind. All of these worlds had the same fundamental data. However, the personal touches made it evident that everything had been prepared for years. The Council was confronted with a reality that questioned all their assumptions about extraterrestrial culture. Beyond merely surviving, humanity has utilized solitude to break free from the constraints that ensnared all other creatures abound. Suddenly they vanished, leaving behind desolate planets and the unnerving realization that the universe had shrunk in size. As far as scientific missions go, the United Council expedition into the human abduction was the granddaddy of them all. At the border of what was once human space, 300 spacecraft from 50 different species gathered, bringing with them the galactic elite in the fields of science, engineering, and archaeology. If solutions could be discovered, this journey would locate them. Drakmari Imperial Fleet Admiral Korin oversaw the mission. His people had a reputation for being the galaxy's foremost explorers, having charted more stars than any other civilization, systems than every other kind of life on Earth. If only someone could crack the code to if mankind were to vanish tomorrow, it would be his doing. Launch a comprehensive investigation of I want every planet, every former human territory, he said from the bridge of the Starseeker, his flagship. Complete searches were conducted by all asteroid mining platforms, including the space station. Information that may have slipped our notice. The mission was divided into smaller assignments, groups. Every one of the groups was in charge of a certain area of human space. They dug for weeks, but all they turned up were the same things previous patrols had found: deserted colonies, settlements, and no indication of the possible destinations of 1 billion people. Academic Alliance member Dr. Yalith oversaw the scientific group studying the planet Earth, her people. The Menturi were inherently people who were naturally inquisitive and enjoyed a good challenge. She had researched the history of many civilizations and speculated on. Although she had a good grasp of social organization, she never stopped being amazed by the human race. She informed Admiral Corrin that the evacuation was very well coordinated, and they managed to individual possessions while ensuring that all infrastructure remained undamaged. They correctly turned off electricity systems and sealed protecting structures from the elements. This was not the result of individuals fleeing worried. The Admiral wanted to know how long they thought the evacuation had taken. The data suggests that the outer colonies will need at least 6 months, and maybe even a full year for the planet itself. It would have necessitated meticulous strategizing and massive resources. What Dr. Yalith found most perplexing was what the people had opted to bring along food supplies, but recipe books had vanished along with them. Pricey, delicately removed family photographs were left behind while artwork remained. Precious metals remained in storage, whereas libraries were entirely depleted. They extracted information and recollections, she informed her study team, noting that they had abandoned all replaceable items. Professor Zinkara's archaeological team was also busy unsettling findings in the underground archives of large human settlements. The Zinkara were creatures with superhuman processing speeds like living computers, more so than any biological mind. They were experts at seeing patterns that others failed to notice. A dot in the human brain's subcellular matrix, Mars Research Facility. Professor Zinkara discovered intentionally deleted files. In contrast to the items that were seized, these research papers appear to have been earmarked for discovery by the Council. During the 5 years of solitude, the files contained humanity's scientific advancements. Professor Zing, the news that humans had been researching, set off a chain reaction in Era's artificial brain. Some kind of theory involving dimensions of space and time that the majority of the Council's scientists believed to be purely fantastical. They have constructed apparatus to evaluate hypotheses regarding. Most shockingly, they seem to have been successful in folding spacetime itself. You must view these, Admiral Professor Zinkara spoke with the Starseeker. Files pertaining to research. Individuals were engaged in developing transportation systems that Admiral Corden examined the documents with increasing astonishment. The mathematics were incomprehensible inside the Council's records. The schematics depicted machinery that broke recognized physical principles. However, the outcomes of the experiments indicated that these theoretically impossible gadgets performed as expected. Evolve at this rate, he pondered out loud. Not even our most sophisticated species would need a great deal of time to accomplish. His scientific advisor, a person from a different species that had spent millions of years of time researching the cosmos, presented a worrisome prospect. Maybe they weren't working on it when they were alone, Admiral. Maybe they were working on it in secret before the seclusion. That idea prompted the journey. To zero in on the locations of the first space missions. If people had been, their most secret and out-of-the-way labs would be the best places to conceal their cutting-edge research. A breakthrough in this area occurred when a research station in the Kuiper Belt that was being examined by Dr. Yalith and his colleagues beyond Pluto. The station, like other human-built installations, had been deserted, although there was something the previous patrols had failed to notice, a message crystal concealed within what seemed to be a closet for maintenance. This crystal, in contrast to the public messages seen in big cities, was obviously intended for serious research. When turned on, it mirrored not just Elena Vasquez's image, but what seemed like a digital tour of the pinnacle of human progress. The video started in what seemed like Elena stood before a gigantic subterranean complex cut into the side of an asteroid, in the form of an uncomfortable-looking contraption, its contours appearing to contort and twist and turn in ways that were incomprehensible to our space-age sight. If you are, according to Helena, if you've been watching this, you've stumbled into one of our study projects, locations. The Prometheus Project is an effort by humanity to discover a method to escape the spaces between galaxies that are habitable. The virtual tour progressed to reveal enormous rooms brimming with inconceivable equipment. Human researchers collaborated with machines that looked to occupy part of the usual physical space and part of another reality. It was obvious that the level of technology had surpassed all expectations of the Council. As a species, you've spent millions of years honing your skills. According to Elena, we spent decades asking what might be possible if we threw out all the old rules. Footage depicted test flights of spacecraft that folded space around itself, demonstrating tests via portals that led to other, more remote regions of the cosmos. Surprisingly, it proved that extragalactic civilizations could establish successful communication. We are not the only ones who have found a way to travel across galaxies, Elena went on to say. There are others in the universe, long-gone cultures that departed from their own galaxy. They are eagerly anticipating the arrival of new species to their group. However, they will only reach out to those who demonstrate the ability to think creatively and independently. Dr. Yaleth interrupted the Admiral. If this is real, then mankind didn't only record her mind whirling. Dissipate, they completed their education. Elena displayed short glimpses of the cultures. We had come face to face with entities made entirely of energy. Machines with intelligences that extended across dimensions who had mastered the art of non-physical existence. Species of organic matter that have united with their technological know how to form a new kind of civilization have, as Elena mentioned, been observing the Milky Way for millions of years. They see different species experience the ebb and flow of power, seeing the emergence and collapse of mighty civilizations, out in a matter of millennia. They have discovered that specific kinds of societies are prepared for the next level of life. The picture shifted to depict what seemed like a huge assembly room. Nevertheless, this hall seemed to occupy more than one dimension, unlike anything else in council space. On the same time as entities that disproved all prior notions of what life may entail. The prerequisite is straightforward. Elena, a species must prove it can grow beyond the need for external authority, the speaker stated. It has to prove that it can succeed even when nobody is looking over its shoulder. It must show that it values exploration and independence more than safety and comfort. Admiral Corral, upon realizing what Elena was saying, he felt his scales go chilly. Elena went on to say that the Galactic Council is a symbol of all that these sophisticated societies have achieved. Committee, with the slowest number limiting development and innovation being hindered by aversion to change. They saw that others were also fighting these constraints, so they opted to observe what was sufficient. The video displayed short scenes of human settlements, planets, celestial cities that seemed to float weightlessly in space, sentient beings that kids having fun with non-physical playthings. When you seem human yet appear to radiate an inner light, you gave us the greatest gift possible, isolating us. Elena smiled and remarked, and appeared simultaneously thankful and sad. Thank you for relieving us of the need to conform to a system that was. You made us discover our own way since you were never going to accept us. The last picture depicted a fleet of thousands of enormous spacecraft that did not match any design in the Council-S archives. Approaches that seemed to necessitate a transformation of reality to suit their needs. The spacecraft seemed to be carrying whole cities' worth of people, and it was about the size of a small moon. Humanity is departing from this galaxy. Helena summed up by saying, "We have been invited, not as refugees but as graduates, on a journey to become a part of a species that transcends dimensions and galaxies. We depart not enraged by the people we must leave behind, but rather filled with optimism for the future." Towards the end of the recording, which did not lead to any specific place in the Milky Way, but rather to observation sites where spacecraft from the Council may be able to pick up signs of extraterrestrial traffic. Admiral Corrin and Dr. Yali spent days verifying those coordinates. Their view of the cosmos was fundamentally altered by what they saw. The region surrounding those locations displayed indications of multidimensional. Energy scans indicated gates, and the distortion was unlike anything in Council science. Sight revealed immeasurably large expanses. Alarmed by this, ultimately, they discovered proof that these gates had not been opened. Word on the street was that the Galactic Council was rocked hard by humanity's actual departure. The news spread like wildfire within days of. When word got to Council headquarters about Admiral Corrin, the meticulously a system that had controlled the cosmos for eons started to crumble. The younger species were first addressed, those who had joined the Council during the past few thousand years or so. The first to speak during the emergency session were representatives from the Orlan Federation. If the humans could figure out a method if we have been beyond our galaxy, Ambassador Thrixala asked, then why are we still on Earth? Who are these species whose norms we must adhere to, Speaker Valthuros, since they plainly do not know as much as they seem to? A creature made of ancient crystal who had presided over the Council for a greater duration than the duration of most civilizations attempted to keep the peace. People were careless, putting themselves at grave danger by doing things that had the potential to damage them. Our meticulous, tried-and-true procedures guarantee tranquility and steadiness. Thrixala's fury grew in her voice as she spoke. Is it stable to exterminate an entire species? I would say no, Tranquil. Perhaps the people were correct in rejecting our techniques. Murmurs of an extraordinary level of agreement reverberated through portions of the Grand Hall where younger species were seated. Throughout the lengthy, members of the Council may have argued about specifics of policy in the past, but they never challenged the Council's underlying structure. Within, Kaller's ambassadors rose to address the rising discontent. His silver, it seemed as if his complexion had lost its radiance and his voice had lost its assurance. We must now concentrate on preserving civilization for the individuals who will come after us, regardless of whether we approve of their ways or not. Out meridians, Ambassador Kester. What are you referring to by remain?
Coalition, a structure that ejects the most inventive beings we've ever seen. A culture that is incredibly inflexible, because it compels promising emerging civilizations to pick between assimilating or being marginalized. The debate raged on for hours. Members of Parliament who had never before dared to challenge the Councilist power were now doing just that. Constantly go for the treaty and why were novel concepts met with skepticism? Rules were never changed, even though they were obviously ineffective. However, the true catastrophe started 3 months later, when Earth was the starting point for something that began happening on other planets. Dr. Yalov had already departed, tracking devices in the deserted human towns to investigate the evolution of these deserted communities. Machinery was developed to detect a wide range of phenomena, including, but not limited to, weather patterns, minute animal movements, and so on. Learned that technology was turning on. Admiral Yalov sent a message to the Council spacecraft in Earth's orbit. The technology that humanity abandoned as Admiral Corrin, who was elevated to the position of head of Council security, following his remarkable. Meanwhile, ships were sent out without delay to probe. The discovery, made in the basement, was inexplicable. Machines that had been lifeless and icy at the Martian Human Research Facility all of a sudden. Power began to hum, and screens that had been black began to flicker. What was most unsettling was the robots started running independently. The experimental dimensional gear that humans had left behind appeared to be executing a program, according to the investigating team. However, they are unable to ascertain the purpose of the program, on which to focus. Similar tales emerged from every planet that had ever been inhabited by humans. Research facilities were undergoing a transformation. Unbeknownst to Council scientists, equipment was becoming operational. According to a certain plan, the deserted human settlements started to emit eerie, painfully patterned light, while Dr. Yalov laboriously sought to decipher anything that she had uncovered via her examination of the waking technology, to the point when she began to doubt her entire worldview as she realized that the machinery was unjust powering up. She apprised Admiral Corrin of the situation. It is developing. The machinery is becoming better, independently, according to principles that we do not understand. How do they evolve? The Admiral inquired. It seems that they are acquiring new skills through interaction with the dimensional network that humans have uncovered. It's almost as if computers are picking up knowledge from alien cultures. Stranger things started to happen within a few weeks. the human being's capacity for self-improvement technology started making new gadgets. Out of thin air, machines appeared, used techniques that went against all the rules of physics to create these new machines the council had never seen before, and it was evident that they weren't constructed for human purpose. Along came the messages, the committee's communication networks, which were meticulously separated from broadcasts from outside. The solar system abruptly started reaching Earth after years of galactic rim. Despite not being human-generated, the communications appeared to have some connection to technological advancements made by humans. The message's original language was unknown to any of the council species, but the translation was surprisingly straightforward. Seemed coded to be deciphered by any galactic-faring civilization. Salutations to the Milky Way's Galactic Council. We have been contacted and are here today to represent the Andromeda Galaxy as the Nexus Collective. The message started by humans who have joined our galactic community cultural backgrounds. It took Admiral Corrin 3 readings of the translation for its significance to sink in. The message. Humans have become ambassadors to other galaxies, not just discovered a path to them. The humans have informed your council of their experiences. Your forms of government are intriguing. We are interested in meeting with members of your culture to probe the potential for intergalactic collisions. However, the message continued, revealing that the humans were exiled by your council because they refused to submit to your power. This worries us. The spacefaring civilizations that have developed a system of value, rejecting the status quo in favor of originality and autonomy. The message concluded with an offer that divided the council, stating the species are prepared to communicate with humans. Any creature that is interested in communicating with humans may do so through the dimensional network that we built, might inquire about extraterrestrial life at any time. Intergalactic interaction may be explored for species that can think beyond the boundaries of local authority. The message did say, however, that we would avoid dealing with cultures that restrain the expansion of their constituents. It is a prerequisite for admission to the galactic community as a whole to demonstrate that you are capable of lead without imposing your beliefs on others. The council rooms descended into anarchy. Half of the MPS proclaimed instant communication with these alien cultures. Half of the group thought it was too soon, threatening, and likely a trap. Ambassador Seth Kalor found himself arguing for the group that wished to avoid any interaction with these extraterrestrials. From inside our own civilization, they may be plotting its downfall. It's possible that humans were manipulated or misled. However, his adversary, Ka of the Symbiosis, was becoming more formidable by the day. Hundreds of younger species rallied around a new group that wanted the council to drastically alter its function. People demonstrated that there are other options outside our current way of living. According to Catheta, these extraterrestrial cultures are giving us an opportunity to expand our horizons beyond what is already possible. Without making an effort, how can we say no? Are familiar with their services? For months, people argued over it. In that time, the dimension network that humans had abandoned persisted on developing new technology, showed up often in the long-lost human cities, with some of these gadgets appearing to be aids to council. Some of these species have evolved to comprehend complex scientific concepts, while others have only served as instruments of discovery. Most noticeably, the system started enabling restricted contact with human settlements in different galaxies. The scientists on the council who had access to the network got short communications from their old co-workers in Dr. Sarah's office. Years after being rejected by Zephyr in space, Chun, the captain of a freighter, reached out to her former partners in trade. The cosmos is far bigger than what we had anticipated. In this vast universe, there are countless galaxies, each home to a multitude of civilizations. Freedom is essential for progress, as most of them realized a long time ago. I hope you'll rise up and join us one day. The messages had a huge impact on the species that make up the council. Many of them started to wonder if it was worth it, as to whether their long-ago form of government actually served as the optimal framework for coordinating intergalactic society. One last hurdle was the announcement by 17 council species that they were leaving the central government. They desired in order to discover the interdimensional network and establish amicable contact with alien cultures. We shall not go from this galaxy in the same manner that humans departed, declared Orlean Federation Ambassador Thrikala. However, we will refuse this to be confined by a council that prioritizes dread of expansion over the importance of. The Speaker Valoros fought valiantly to keep the council from dissolving. Different species will battle for scarce resources. The fragile peace will crumble. Perhaps we will find that civilizations, Frixala respondate, or maybe we will work together without being compelled to conform. People, it appears that they are of the opinion that the galaxy found itself. The three groups split along traditional council species lines. Zethalar's group maintained its insistence that the more traditional methods were superior. The more progressive people, spearheaded by endeavored to revitalize internal council members and autonomous species, under the direction of the Orlean Federation embarked on an investigation into network independently.